Hey everyone, welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. My name is Adam Hancock, and today we are releasing our updated 2023 A to Z neighborhood guide to Sarasota, Florida. This is one video that you should be able to grab, and this set really the foundation, the path to all your real estate shopping experience in both Sarasota and Manatee County. So I hope you find a ton of value in this one, and let's hop in. All right, number one, we are gonna start off with what I'm calling Sarasota itself, which I'm gonna explain here in a minute, and a preface. So when people typically call us, and they're looking at Sarasota, they're not looking at like Gulfgate versus Pinecraft. They're not looking at individual neighborhoods per se. What they're looking at is the best place to live, which here it's areas of town, it's sections of town. So you really have to include both counties. And to do this video well, in my personal opinion, you'd be able to take 2 of this list of 10 and narrow down and say, I think these are an interesting fit for me, and then really get honed in. And that would be the right way to funnel down a home search, especially from out of state. So with that being said, number 1 on this list, in no particular order, is Sarasota's Mainland Central District. So this is south of Bradenton, north of Venice, and it's not quite to the beaches, it's not quite to the urban downtown districts. It's the meat of the area. So on a positive spectrum, this is a geography play alone. I mean, almost alone. It is an amazing spot on a map. All of it's very Western. This area was built first. It was built with all the great parts about Sarasota. You know, Lido Beach, where I stand here today, Siesta Key, downtown Sarasota. It was built near the town before they had all this master plan stuff going on. So it's an amazing spot on a map. With that being said, because it's so mature and it was built first, where you gain geography, you lose new construction for one. You lose master plan. I mean, there's spotty opportunities, but this is not built in the last 20 years. It wasn't built with all of this foresight in mind. It was, it was evolved, right? So if you come from out of state, it does feel random because it's resale homes only. They already existed. A lot of stuff built in the 90s and the 80s, but in amazing spots on a map if you can navigate it correctly. What I typically see who this would be for, it's one, people that they think 12, 13 miles from the beach and downtown Sarasota is just too far simply, right? I think there's all perspective to that, but the people that are like, I'm moving here for these reasons and I don't want to live on the island, I see that being one of the options. Number 2 is we assume that everybody just loves, the master plan suburbs of the world. Not everybody wants to live in Pleasantville. Not everybody wants a 60-foot lot. Not everybody wants to be 15 feet from the neighbors. Schools might not be relevant. You might be an empty nester. You might want a little bit more space. And you might value geography. So if that sounds like more your speed, this is a section of town that I would really consider. Okay, number 2 on the list, we're going with Lakewood Ranch, Florida. And the reason this is in the second spot is I think it's the perfect juxtaposition against our number 1. This is Master Plan USA. This is number 1 multi-generational master plan in the entire United States, 5 years in a row, 30 plus new construction neighborhoods. You have the oldest home in the entire region was built in 1995. There's 3 town centers, there's great school districts, bop, 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 you keep going. So in order to do something cool like that, what you gain in that, you lose in perspective, right? Everything's a perspective in geography. You need land to do something big and cool like this. You need land, this was built in 1995 post, right? So how would they do that in Sarasota? It's not like Sarasota just got popular. You had to go in a certain direction. So this one goes northeast of the downtown Sarasota metro. The closest community in all of Lakewood Ranch Census District is about 10 to 11 miles one way. So put that in perspective. It's really hard to get further than 11 miles from the beach in all of number 1's territory. And in Lakewood Ranch, this is where you start the conversation, right? So you got to decide what you deem most important, right? So who I usually see this one good for, as I digress, is a couple of different elements, right? One is, in perspective terms, right? There's price point. I get this a broad brush, so don't be mad at me. But it's Lakewood Ranch really tried to do something technically for the most people possible, something for everyone. That's why it's number 1 multi-generational, not just number 1. You're going to have large family homes with for $800K with 4 en-suites and lofts and stuff, thinking of a family model. You're gonna have villas for an aging parent. You're going to have more investor-friendly options. You're gonna have golf. You're gonna have amenity-rich. You're gonna have no frills, low fees. They really try to get the whole end-to-end life. And what they tried to do with the new master plan is they said, beyond the beach, why would you need to leave? Because if they can satiate urban walkability and some of those needs, then a lot of I have 2 kids, you can't shoot to the beach every day, right? I mean, you're working with different kind of hours. So if you have little walking districts and little events and little farmers markets and stuff, that's a lot of times that's all everyone needs. And Sarasota is not the youngest market in the world, right? I'm 36, not the youngest town in the world. It's just a different place, not a lot of industry. But if you have a family, you'll see a lot of families lean in this direction if you had to kind of pick one. All right, number 3 on this list, we are going with something called Wellen Park, Florida. This is a lot of intricacies here. This is one area within a larger metro that's also on this list in its own outright. The reason that this is number 3 is because this is really the closest sister we have to Lakewood Ranch, Florida. So I figured you could roll off the back of that. Where they're the same, both new construction ridden, both have great schools, both master plan, both have their own downtowns, etc. Where they're different is this area is much smaller. 9 to 11 total communities, Lakewood Ranch 30 plus, right? This area is also a lot more affordable. You know, what's interesting about the location, so, you know, I described Lakewood Ranch as being, you know, far from town in perspective. Like, that's how to think about the geography of this place, right? So they were able to do this because they had to go where the land was, right? Venice is just as far from town, the same town, but complete opposite direction. So both 45 to 50 minutes one way from the meat of Sarasota, but opposite directions completely. Lakewood Ranch goes northeast of town by 25 to 50 minutes. This one goes straight south but hugs the coast. So what's interesting about that is that people do deem historically that you're making a sacrifice to the town by going to South Venice because there's just nothing really below it. I mean, you have Englewood and you drop off into the water before you hit Cape Coral. There's nothing really below it. But if you can kind of spin that whole idea, if I'm articulating well enough, to view that as maybe it's a positive to you, it becomes really interesting. So by going south, coastal proximity to new construction, incredibly rare in the state of Florida. If we don't show it here, but if you look and you follow your fingers down on a map, look at by going south in Sarasota, how close the water gets to the land. It is incredibly far to get east to west, really far from the beach if you just simply are south. They had to go south enough to get where the land was, but they carved out a full master plan development that's coastal proximity. So who is this right for? So just being honest, and again, you can look at census district yourself, you can look at the numbers. Venice is always going to be slightly older population. It's going to be older than Lakewood. It's probably going to be older than Sarasota. Sarasota is not the youngest place in the world. Venice is going to be an older tier because the same reason that that happens, there's no industry and all that kind of stuff. The same reason it's awesome for retirement, right? So people don't really need to work when they come to Venice. But with that being said, you might want new construction, but you might not want to lose this. I mean, that's really hard. That's not what Lakewood Ranch is, right? It has everything but that. But you might not want to lose this. What if you love like Wilmington, North Carolina? You like the Panhandle of Florida, where it's this quaint coastal living to raise your family. What if you love that? This one is, there's not many places in the entire state of Florida that gives you this kind of thing. Something to really consider. Underrated school districts, I've said it 400 times. You know, Sarasota County has the #2 rated school district in the entire state of Florida. The high school and I think the elementary school are both on the island. Walk to the beach 1 mile, the kids from the high school. These are high rated schools too. And if you're looking for like a pared down, like you're downsizing an empty nester, almost entire section of Wellen Park is built way more down that lane. You know, they have pickleball, they have a downtown, but they're not feeing you to death. There's not a trillion amenities. They don't have all these kids pools. So it's way more in that speed. And it's basically like if you took one section of Lakewood Ranch that was for that demographic, that's what the entire land in Wellen Park is. All right, number 4 on the list, we're gonna stay on the Venice conversation for a minute, and we're gonna talk about Venice itself. You know, Wellen Park, you know, everybody says Venice, right? But Wellen Park is very far south, that new construction area. That's the only land there was there to build. So it's technically South Venice, but it's also a lot of Northport. But what you have above that is the rest of Venice, which is its own city in Sarasota County. And if you group in Nokomis and Osprey, which are 2 little cities on their own outright, then this conversation is everything south of Sarasota, south of Palmer Ranch. So think below Siesta Key, above Englewood. What I would say of the reason you would end up here, this is, if you love a lot of what makes Sarasota great, you know, if you love the way it's oriented, the coast, you love the downtowns, you like the style. What Venice gives you, and the majority reason you would end up there, it gives you a quaint and more charming historic version of all of that. There is, granted, it's a little cheaper, but there is not some windfall of economic leverage that would just make you go to Venice because of price. Most people are gonna go there because of style and aesthetics. Slower pace of life, but a lot of the charm that Sarasota has in general. It's just a lot more laid back. So think of the perfect way to summarize it in my mind, if you've ever been here, right? This is a very niche example, but take downtown Sarasota and marry it to Siesta Key Village. That is the style of this place. There is beach bars, there's some upscale restaurants, a lot of waterfront, but it's casual and laid back in general, and it gives you a junior version of the Sarasota Mainland, which just has a lot more hustle and bustle. All right, number 5 on the list is Western Bradenton. So we're gonna hop all the way up north of Sarasota and get the coastal part of Manatee County. So this is east of all these major suburbs. This one is kind of an enigma on its own outright. So what you have here is you have an area that's not super, it's very far north and it's not super suburban. So because of that, it's gonna be a lot more small town feel. It's not just ridden with new construction. And on the same token, you're not gonna have this controlled real estate value, right? You're gonna have, like any town like this, you're gonna have, you know, someone that lived in a home generationally forever, and then on the same street, because of the awesome location, you're gonna have someone build this, like, you know, urban infill mansion, right? So you gotta kind of like that style of where it's not guaranteed. And so as kind of like who this would be for, right? People that, in my opinion, people that love Western Bradenton love it. You know, they're romantic about it. It's got a very, very different, distinct feel than anywhere in Sarasota offers. And, you know, kind of like how people talk about Gulfport, right? It's a very particular place. Secondly, I think on just macro geography and economics, you have one of the most affordable ways to get close to the water in both counties combined. So because it gets you it gets you north, it gets you not guaranteed value, it gets all these kind of things that aren't a guarantee to people, and that's where value is created. So if you like Anna Maria Island, Coquina, Holmes Beach, northern Longboat Key, this mainland district is very close to the water. If you look at it on a map and you know nothing about the area, you're like, holy crap, it's kind of like looking at Palmetto. You're like, why is this so cheap? Right? It's all those kind of variant value things I described, but it is very close to the water. So if you want to live on the mainland and you like these beaches and you don't care really about Lido or Siesta Key, then this would be a way to get affordability. And then also just water access in general. The cheapest ways to get waterfront property and that kind of thing is usually Manatee River. So this butts into Manatee River to the north, and to the west, it butts into, you know, beautiful beaches. And then St. Petersburg, Florida is incredibly close to this. You could live here and commute to St. Pete or vice versa. So that's how I would sum up Western Bradenton just for this context alone. All right, so now we're on to number 6, and we're gonna get more intricate as we go here. I'm using this list to kind of build an aggregate story as we go. So I hope it comes across that way. Number 6 is Parrish, Florida. So what happens is, so we've already hit all the mainstream. When you Google Sarasota, we kind of hit the meat of the area, especially when it comes to suburban conversation. But what happens when any town gets popular is the first things that benefit from the popularity of the main part is the closely bordering towns. And Parrish is an amazing example of that, right? So let's take Lakewood Ranch, right? Say you knew nothing about it at all. Lakewood Ranch was not built when I was growing up. University Town Center did not exist when I was growing up. What Lakewood Ranch is on a map is it's northeast of town. If you knew nothing about it, it's northeast of town, and every single person I grew up with, people still talk about it like if they're not in this industry, like it's in the absolute boonies, right? That's the way it was positioned in town. Now that you know enough about it, you're like, oh my gosh, I get it, right? It was where I went to get more house. It was where I went to get new construction. At one point, it's hard to think of it now, it was where I went to get affordability because people deem that as a sacrifice. So you got all that being said, well, look at where Parrish, Florida sits. Parrish, Florida is northeast of town. It is just a further version than Lakewood Ranch. So we're telling the same story. You know, what's interesting to me is, and this one even sneaks a little bit, opposite on camera, a little bit northwest here, so it starts to hook to the coast a little bit. But what's interesting to me is how these things evolve, right? So one thing that was a big problem about Parrish in the past is, well, one, people just biasly remembering it the way it was. It was absolute country, good and bad, right? It was also access. The Fort Hammer Bridge used to not exist. Trying to get from Lakewood to Parrish before the Fort Hammer Bridge, now this is a niche conversation if you haven't been here, was really, really hard to access, right? So people still remember that. They build these bridges and people don't drive it every day, so they don't think that it's still there. They don't think of it like that. Now, if you take Lakewood Ranch Boulevard and drive straight, you're right there, right? So now it's actually a sister. And then say you've been shopping Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch. You start familiar with the builders, Neal Communities, Taylor Morrison, Medallion, the same 6-7 Lennar, same players build everything, D.R. Horton. Well, look at, like, coincidentally, right? They're all in Parrish as well. And they all have sister communities, and look at the pricing versus Lakewood. It's not the same price. So, you know, one of the best ways to see how things are gonna happen is look at the builder pricing their own damn houses against each other. Like, that's telling you what they feel and what they value these areas and how people think of them, right? So with all that being said, it's interesting if it might be a benefit for you and a sacrifice to other people. So who is this right for? I think right off the bat, if I'm just being honest with you, it's a cost thing. Like you're not choosing that because it gets you in like higher north in the state, right? You're choosing that because you're saying, 2,000 square feet in Lakewood, I got 3,000 here. I get a pool in Parrish, want to be able to get a pool. People act like they go there to get away from the people. I would say 99% of people, they want one of the builders in Lakewood and they go there because they're like, oh, that's all it was? Oh, I don't go to the beach every day. Oh, and then you get into sneaky opportunities where, okay, so say you got your head around that, right? And you're like, actually the way it hooks west, the far parts of Lakewood, it's all not equal, right? Get above State Road 70, the far parts of Lakewood, Star Farms, Esplanade, Zario, those are 50 minutes one way to the beach. How far is Parrish from the beach? 50 minutes. Parrish is 50 minutes from both Anna Maria and Lido, right? So if you step back and you're like, oh, like it's actually not that different. Also, you get closer to St. Pete and Tampa because you head that direction. And if you're someone that doesn't care about the beach, or not as much, right? You live 2 hours now, and you value travel, then this gets you 15 to 20 minutes closer one way to Tampa International Airport. So if you follow this story, right? There's no reason you're in this story unless you tracked it with me. But if you follow it like that, then I think you get into really interesting economic and lifestyle equations. All right, number 7 on the list is called downtown west of the trail. So what this basically is nothing on the list so far fit you. And you're not gonna go high-rise condo. You want to be in the thick of the things and buy all the stuff, but maybe you want a single family. Just as an example, right? That's what this one is on the list. So you have a couple options. One is downtown Sarasota itself. This is, this is gonna be your classic downtown. These are restored bungalows and crawl spaces and historic kind of homes. And in historic districts, you have Cowles Court, Burns Court, you have Laurel Park, just as some examples there. But this is, what I would say about Sarasota is we have, a weirdly lovely downtown in perspective to everywhere I've ever been. One of the big things is we don't have this big business push. A lot of independent here. So our downtown's not surrounded by urban commutes. And that creates walkability, it's upscale, it's clean, it's so lovely. And there's like little parts of it that are different from each other, but if you lived in it, it's incredibly walkable. Like if you could get on this side and live in it, it's incredibly walkable. You're gonna sacrifice a lot of house versus the first 6 on the list, but that's what you'd be seeking. This is the anti-suburb. The second option is where we would maybe be one of the most unique options in the entire United States. And that's an area that's deemed west of the trail, west of US 41, west of Tamiami Trail, if you've ever heard those terms, right? Tamiami Trail is a road, US 41, that runs north to south, and it runs parallel to the interstate that runs north to south too, but this one is very coastal. So this is, in essence, as close as you can get to the water in a normal neighborhood on the mainland before you go to the beach. So we are very distinctly beach or not beach. We're barrier islands only. Siesta, Longboat Key, it's bridges. So if you get very far west, there's this little strip that's on this other side of a road. So there's east and west of the trail, but it's basically like these full-on neighborhoods that are in an incredible location to the country, right? So think about you're talking there's areas that sit that are, because what you want is, you don't want access to the water, you want access to accessible water. So if you're close to the water but not close to the bridge, it's not functional, unless particular boat or whatever. So you have these areas of towns that sit where they're both less than a half a mile to downtown, and they're less than 5 miles to Lido Beach, St. Armand Circle, Siesta Key, Longboat Key. They sit in the middle, and they're accessible to all of it because of the way the north and the south bridges align. So some neighborhoods, just a riff, and this video is not about this alone. You have Oyster Bay on the south side, you have McClellan Park, you have Bayview, Cherokee Park's one of my favorite. But what it gives you is a high-rated elementary school district. It gives you large single families in non-HOA zones. And it's just really hard to replicate. They don't build a lot of stuff around downtowns because, if they have a little swath of land, they could build an 18-story condo building for the same reason. These ones just kind of fell backwards into incredible value proposition. It's unique, it's niche, it's expensive, but you're not sacrificing all that house you would in a normal urban district if you can pay the premium and navigate the resale market. All right, number 8. Now we're getting to a little bit bonus territory here of particulars. So this one is condo specific. And this one even more niche than that, I'm saying non-beach, but condo living. So there's 3 real districts you can do. This would be if you liked, you know, the last one I talked about, but you're not like a historic bungalow house person. You want to go full condominium. And typically the closer you get to all the stuff, it's a lot more accessible if you go condo just because of space. You know, there's hundreds of buildings in these 3 districts that all are half a mile from each other. 3 ways to look at it if you're coming to Sarasota. The 3 main, I mean, it's not a magic bullet, the 3 main areas. Downtown itself, which I just mentioned, you know, where I mentioned a few different neighborhoods, 90 plus buildings you can build condos in. So if you liked all the walkability stuff about downtown Sarasota, and then there's a wider range of price point, a wider range of fees, a wider range of age, but you can really target like specific streets. You know, you can get Main Street, you can get Palm Avenue. And like I said, it's a unique place. It's very small, never really feels crowded. But downtown Sarasota itself is interesting. Some new buildings I like right now that are releasing, Soda is one of the newest. That's coming on Main Street. It's like stone's throw from our office. Really cool place, SOTA. DeMarque is another, it's one of probably my favorite street in downtown on Palm. Real narrow building. You have the Edge, and you know, there's a few more coming. The other 2 districts to look at, and again, I'm not gonna get crazy on this one topic, is the Quay. The Quay and the Bay sit in this one little area. And it's basically a 14-acre mixed-use place that's on the actual bay. And it's in a great location. It's like this land mass where it's mixed use of luxury condominium residences. You have a couple Ritz buildings, you have the Beso, 1 park's being built there, which is new, a couple luxury hotels. And you're gonna have shopping and dining and real high-end, kind of more like South Naples, Miami stuff is gonna be down there. The other option would be Golden Gate Point. So Golden Gate Point's basically almost to the bridge at Lido. And that's it's a peninsula, so obviously it's surrounded by water on 3 sides, but that gives you another option where if you like the style between the 2, these would be the 3 districts I would probably hone in on and look at resales and new construction as far as condominiums go. All right, number 9, we're talking the beaches. And I've talked a lot around this obviously in this video, but it needs to be its own thing because there's a lot of ways you can go with this category. For this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to try to pinpoint ways to look at them versus each other because they're just so plentiful. You know, south to north, you have everything from, you know, Englewood and Manasota Key to, you know, 3 beaches in Venice, and you have Casey Key, you have Siesta Key, 3 beaches on that island, Lido, Longboat, Holmes, Coquina, Anna Maria, Bradenton, if you go up those 2 counties, right? And they just keep going. A lot of barrier islands, some that aren't. But let's just kind of hit main hitters. So affordability. Venice Beach, and there's 3, but Venice Island, downtown Venice, right? You have that, you have Casperson, which is the shark shoes capital of the world. Brohard's a dog beach. But Venice Island is one of the most inexpensive beaches in the entire state of Florida, beach towns, where you could walk to the beach from a condo or a single family home on the Gulf Coast. I've ranked them all. It's one of the cheapest overall. So if you're gonna start on affordability alone, I would 100% look at this area, right? I mean, it's all resale, but still underrated in my opinion. Siesta Key and Anna Maria. These are gonna be your classic touristy kind of beaches, right? They look exactly like they do online when you're picturing vacation. You know, Siesta, both of them have the white quartz sand, like not rocky like Lido. They're sugar doesn't get hot to the touch. It's like sugar sand. But they attract visitors. They have large parking lot, large beach accesses. They have walking shopping districts, right? If you're okay with all of that, then the entire vibe of these islands is real island, casual, approachable, right? It's not pretentious, I would say, in my opinion. Longboat Key is gonna be way more private. Longboat Key is where I would target if I was looking for the opposite of Anna Maria and Siesta, kind of. It's gonna be way more residential feeling. The beach accesses are plentiful, but not in the same way. They're not these big parking lots where like they're not trying to get a bunch of people there. Like clearly, like they're, you know, without saying it, they're not trying to get a bunch of people there. There's not a lot of reasons tourists would end up there. Not as much rentals as south and north of it. And if you were gonna be a full-time resident and you weren't into like a bunch of people on your island that don't live there, you were that kind of vibe, Longboat Key would be more of that speed. Englewood is all the way, the furthest point south you could get before you fall off into the water. That's gonna be even a more laid back version and more affordable version than Venice, which is a more laid back and affordable version of Siesta. So it's like 3 rungs down. Casey Key's an in-betweener. It's really niche. You know, I think Stephen King, the author, lives there. It's a very small area, but beautiful on its own outright, but it's very niche in the conversation. And then you got some options in between, but generally, if I was roaming categories as just a quick start list, I would start there. All right, the 10th and final one for this list, we're talking Northport, Florida. So this one has always been an enigma to the conversation. I don't talk about it a lot. I think it's overlooked by many. But if you take, if we peel back this a little bit, you take Sarasota's Mainland, number one on the list, and you take Venice, and you just go east, then you have this huge piece of land that's not densely populated, no real major downtowns or any of that kind of stuff. And you're like, why would you end up in Northport? You know, right off the bat, you know, for what happened to Sarasota, the affordability that still exists in this place is incredible to me. I mean, it's unbelievably cheaper than anywhere else. The land pricing, the home pricing, etc. But if people are getting their head around going to Parrish, Palmetto, Western Bradenton, you know, even south to Wellen, which crosses to Northport a lot, to say that this is a bad geography is kind of crazy. You know, it's not a bad spot on the map. It's not as outskirts as like a Port Charlotte or a Punta Gorda or anything like that. And they just haven't quite figured out, it hasn't got its foothold on the area. But in my opinion, if you take what it is on a geography conversation, if you knew nothing about the area, how big this place is, right? And all the other stuff that became in vogue because it was popular around other things, and they could figure out what to do with master planned here and industry, and you see it a little bit with the hospital builds and some of the new construction. But if they could figure this out, I think Northport becomes incredibly interesting. And it feels like to me that it's so far behind, but we have a path now that says every other part of town's been developed with this one. And if someone can figure it out, I think it would be a really, really interesting, not just investment opportunity, but it would give a lot of accessibility to Sarasota. All right, my friends, that is a wrap for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and found a ton of value in it. If you did, please consider subscribing and liking the video if you haven't already done so. Any real estate assistance, Sarasota, Manatee, all of Tampa Bay, all of Naples, everything in between, my team would love to assist. Very analytics focused, and we really, really value the experience as a whole, so please consider reaching out. And finally, free resources, relocation guides, analytical tools, newsletter that is like nothing else on YouTube, the sunshinestateco.com. We'll put the URL here. All of it you can navigate there and in the description box below. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.